Who would intervene in Syria if it becomes a failed state? A comprehensive military, geopolitical, and historical analysis. Syria, once a cornerstone of the Middle East, stands precariously close to complete collapse after over a decade of devastating civil war. This nation, strategically located at the crossroads of Europe, Asia, and Africa, has not only been a stage for internal conflict, but also a battleground for fierce global and regional power struggles. If Syria were to fully disintegrate into a failed state, the question would no longer be if someone intervenes, but who would step in and what their objectives would be. This analysis delves into the military strategies, geopolitical stakes, and historical context surrounding such a scenario. Syria, a historical focal point for intervention. Syria's geography has made it a prize of strategic significance throughout history. From the Roman and Byzantine empires to the French Mandate following World War I, its position has consistently drawn the attention of powerful nations. Bordered by the Mediterranean to the west, Turkey to the north, Iraq to the east, and Jordan and Israel to the south, Syria serves as a critical land bridge and a buffer between rival powers. In the 20th century, Syria's emergence as an independent state marked the beginning of a new era, but its strategic location continued to attract external influence. During the Cold War, it became a key Soviet ally, fostering a military relationship that endures today through its partnership with Russia. This legacy of foreign intervention and rivalry is essential to understanding why a complete collapse of Syria would trigger significant international responses. Russia's role, securing its Mediterranean stronghold. Russia has deeply entrenched interests in Syria. Its 2015 military intervention was not only an effort to stabilize Bashar al-Assad's regime, but also a strategic move to strengthen its foothold in the Middle East. Key to this strategy are the Russian military bases in Tartus and Hmeimim, which provide essential access to the Mediterranean and allow Moscow to project power across the region while countering NATO's influence. If Syria were to collapse, Russia would likely bolster its military presence, particularly along the coastal areas that are vital to its strategic interests. With experience in prolonged conflicts like those in Chechnya and Ukraine, the Russian military would be prepared to secure its assets using advanced equipment such as Su-35 fighter jets, S-400 air defense systems, and heavy artillery. This ensures that Moscow maintains its influence and prevents Western powers from capitalizing on the chaos. Iran, preserving the Shiite crescent. For Iran, Syria is a linchpin in its regional strategy. The land corridor connecting Tehran to Baghdad, Damascus, and southern Lebanon is crucial for supplying Hezbollah and maintaining a strategic foothold against Israel. Losing Syria would significantly weaken Iran's influence in the region. Iran has already established a strong presence in Syria through the Quds Force and allied Shiite militias. These forces, well versed in asymmetric warfare, are equipped with ballistic missiles, advanced drones, and a robust logistical network. In the event of Syria's collapse, Iran would likely focus on securing Damascus and regions near Lebanon to preserve its strategic corridor and counterbalance rival powers like Israel and Saudi Arabia. Turkey, expanding its buffer zone. Turkey views instability in Syria as both a challenge and an opportunity. Ankara perceives the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces, SDF, and their military arm, the YPG, as existential threats due to their ties to the PKK, a separatist group that has waged an insurgency in Turkey for decades. Turkey has already demonstrated its willingness and capability to intervene in Syria, conducting operations like Euphrates Shield and Olive Branch. These operations showcased Turkish military assets, including M60T Sabra tanks, Bayraktar TB2 armed drones, and highly mobile ground forces. If Syria were to collapse, Turkey would likely expand its control over northern Syria to establish a larger buffer zone, neutralize the Kurdish threat, and potentially repatriate millions of Syrian refugees currently residing in Turkey. Israel, countering Iran and securing its borders. For Israel, Syria poses a direct threat due to the presence of Iranian-backed militias near its northern border. Over the years, Israel has conducted hundreds of airstrikes in Syria, targeting Iranian weapons depots and supply convoys with advanced F-16I Super fighter jets and precise intelligence operations. Should Syria fall into chaos, Israel would intensify its preemptive strikes to prevent hostile forces from gaining a stronger foothold in the Golan Heights. While a ground invasion is unlikely, Israel's strategy of active prevention ensures that any perceived threats will be met with overwhelming force, maintaining its security interests. The United States and NATO, limited engagement, focused containment. The United States currently maintains a limited presence in northeastern Syria, primarily supporting the SDF in counter-ISIS operations. While Washington has scaled back its broader involvement in the region, a total Syrian collapse could compel the US to act to prevent the resurgence of terrorist groups and protect its Kurdish allies. However, the US and NATO are unlikely to commit to large-scale ground operations. Instead, they would likely focus on targeted airstrikes, special operations missions, and regional partnerships to contain the chaos without becoming entrenched in another prolonged conflict. The role of non-state actors. A power vacuum in Syria would be a fertile ground for non-state actors like ISIS and Al-Qaeda to expand their operations. These groups have shown resilience in exploiting weak governance to establish territorial control and launch global terror campaigns. Additionally, local warlords and militia groups would emerge, further fragmenting the country and complicating any attempts at stabilization. The presence of multiple armed factions would make Syria a hub of instability, with ripple effects throughout the Middle East and beyond. Conclusion: Syria as a geopolitical tinderbox. If Syria were to become a failed state, it would ignite fierce competition among regional and global powers, each pursuing its own strategic objectives. Russia and Iran would aim to preserve their influence, Turkey would expand its territorial buffer, Israel would intensify its defensive operations, and the US would focus on counter-terrorism. Meanwhile, non-state actors would seize the opportunity to deepen the chaos. This complex web of interests underscores the difficulty of achieving stability in Syria. History has shown that in the Middle East, power vacuums are quickly filled, but rarely resolved peacefully. Instead of bringing order, external interventions often perpetuate cycles of violence. Syria, once more, would become the epicenter of a geopolitical struggle that transcends its borders, with consequences for the entire region and beyond.